You just said in your speech that you think playing a part on the global stage is important. You want to be a leader on the world stage. So on that issue, today 100 creatives have signed a letter urging you that if you get into government, they would like to see you halt UK arms sales to Israel, and they say this would end UK's complicity in war crimes in Gaza. Now, they said it would be a symbolic a symbolic move in line with your vision on change. Now, you said you want to see a summary of the UK's legal position around this. So my question is, do you believe in a moral case for stopping arms sales, given your concerns that you've said around the horrifying scenes in Gaza?
Well, the scenes in Gaza are horrifying, particularly in relation to Rafah. And that's why the number one priority is to ensure we get a ceasefire. We've been saying that for months now. And that means a ceasefire straight away, a cessation of the hostilities. Far too many people have lost their lives. Aid is desperately needed in the region. And, of course, there are still hostages who are held and have been held for a very, very long time. So humanitarian aid needs to get in. There needs to be that ceasefire. And there needs to be the beginning of a political process that leads to a two-stage solution. With Palestinian recognition as a state as part of that process, alongside a safe and secure Israel. So that's what needs to happen. That's where we want to work with allies. And that is important to me. But throughout this conflict, I've been in contact with our allies to make sure that if we are privileged to come in to serve our country, we're in a position to pick those discussions up and work with our allies towards that ceasefire. On the question of the arms sales, it is for the government, obviously, to review the licences. They do it one by one. They have got legal advice. We've been pressing them to disclose that legal advice. And I still press them to disclose that legal advice. Obviously, if we're privileged to come into power, we'll be able to see that advice or commission our own. But look, I will just add this, that the Rafah offensive should not go ahead. And that I think our government should follow the US lead on this in relation to arms sales and review the licences to see whether any of them would be or are being used in Rafah offensive. Thank you.
Yes, Elaine Wilcox, ITV Granada. Conflict is going on right now in Gaza, but you didn't mention it in your speech just now. Voters here in the northwest have been abandoning you in droves over your leadership or lack of leadership on Gaza. As a former human rights lawyer, do human rights matter in Gaza?
Yes, of course. And international law matters in Gaza, and accountability matters in Gaza. And you wouldn't be human if you weren't affected by the images that we've seen, the reports coming out of Gaza, the sheer number of people who've been killed, many of them women and children, and also the knowledge that the hostages are still being held. And I've met some of the families of Palestinians in Gaza who've lost family members. That's extremely moving, very powerful. I've met the families of those who've got hostages who are still being held in this conflict. And again, nobody can be but moved by their powerful testimonies. The best thing we can do for both sides, for everybody concerned, is to press for that ceasefire immediately, straight away. That has been our position for weeks and weeks and weeks and months. We will join with other countries to that end if we get the opportunity to do so. And I think there's a lot of common ground here with other people who I know are deeply concerned about the issue in Gaza, and I'm not surprised. But the first and most fundamental thing is getting that ceasefire, ensuring we can get hostages out. I shudder to think what state they will be in. To make sure we can get humanitarian aid in, desperately needed, and has been for a long time, absolute catastrophe. And then, you know, that duty that we will have if we come into power to play our full part in resolving the conflict in the Middle East for the long term. And that can only happen if we work with our allies, if we play our part on the world stage, and clear the path for a two-state solution. I'm not going to pretend that's going to be easy. I'm not going to pretend this isn't a very difficult starting point. But that has to be, will be, the only way forward. Thank you so much.